We're going to take a little different approach for a few videos. Currently we are working on the Vimshatari Nakshatra Dashas class, but going through the 5th and 6th house at this point in time. I haven't quite got all my notes together for those videos. So here's something else to consider. It's been on my mind for a while. We're going to be talking about love and relationships, how astrology can benefit your love and relationships, but also how you can improve your relationships without astrology. So hence the name of this video, Better Love Relationships with Astrology and Without Astrology. Why do I find this to be so important? Because the birth chart is not going to tell you anything different than what you don't already know about yourself. It may bring to light or share with you things that you're not fully conscious of. But if you're able to stop and take some time to actually assess, what gets in the way of your relationships, you can figure out those difficulties without astrology. And so we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to try to relate it to the chart as well. For example, each planet shows how you are going to experience, react, and grow the different areas of your life. For example, if the sun is well placed and strong, will you be consistent in your duties? Will you be able to follow your inspiration? Well then, the answer would be yes. If Mars is well supported and strong, will you be able to be logical about how to improve your life? Will you be logical about what are the appropriate fights to pick? Again, Mars in a good space, then that will be true. And this will go across your entire life experience. Now we can dial it in a little bit by looking at the particular Vargas that deal with the area of life in question. For example, to know about marriage or to know about your enjoyment of your dharmic path, we would look at the Navamsa. And each planet represents something specific in each Varga. So for example, in the Navamsa, I went over this in the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2, it talks about the planets, the most important planets in the Navamsa, and what they tell you. So for example, the 3 most important planets, and they're all important really, but the 3 most important planets in the Navamsa are Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. Now, why would these 3 planets be so important? Well, Venus tells us, do we feel comfortable on our path? Do we feel comfortable in our marriage? Do we make choices that are supportive of our marriage, the higher fulfillment of our marriage? Or are we so caught up in our senses, and that's another aspect of Venus, that we make poor choices that don't support long-term growth of our marriage? With Mars, Mars is a planet of logic, of reason, of knowing what to fight for. Many people make the mistake of thinking, oh, he's got a strong Mars because he's impatient or has a temper or he's too aggressive. Well, that's not a strong Mars. That's a Mars that's overcompensating for itself. A strong Mars is able to be calm when it needs to be, but then when something comes up to fight for, it can surely stand up for itself and fight. So it's not looking for fights, but it's that soldier that would rather be a farmer. But when someone invades his land, he's going to take up his axe and his sword or whatever it might be, or gun in these days, and he will defend it. But he's not looking for a fight. So Mars is so important in the Navamsa for long-term commitment and marriage because it allows us to see, do we know what to fight for? Do we know what is an appropriate argument to pick? Do we do the logical things that support long-term growth of our marriage? If so, if Mars is in good placement, then that will be true. If not, then a person might be more petty, or they might feel inspired to fight about something that really doesn't matter. Okay, and you can see this in yourself, you can see this in your life. If your relationships fail because you're always unsatisfied, or you're always hungry, or the person's not really living up to your ideals or expectations that are unrealistic. It may be that your partner isn't living up to your expectations and they are realistic, and that might mean you need to get a little bit better radar in regards to who to find as a partner. But it's Mars that's key there. Why is Jupiter important? Because Jupiter in our chart in general shows our capacity for happiness. How happy can we be? If Jupiter is in good dignity, have positive Logitati Avashtas by its friends, in good Vargas, then this person generally is going to be happy. They're going to see the bigger picture, which means that if things go wrong, they're going to understand that's just a part of the rise and fall of life. When things are going well, they're going to enjoy it. When Jupiter is starved by its enemies, or in a negative situation, there's less likely to find happiness in life in general. But if we're talking about the Navamsa particularly, there's less capacity to find happiness being committed to a partner, or just being committed to any kind of path at all, really, because that's what the Navamsa deals with. So we can think about these things, and we don't need an astrological chart to tell us this, because we can just ask ourselves, do I pick too many fights in a relationship? Do I find myself being, aggressive in the relationship? Mars. Do I find myself not really making decisions that are more long-term? Meaning, am I making decisions based on getting my senses met, my senses fulfilled? Or am I making decisions to build a lasting relationship? Venus. With Jupiter, do I see that I can be content in a relationship, that relationship itself doesn't have to be the thing that fulfills me? I'm just happy there, whether I'm enjoying friendship with them, whether I'm enjoying intimacy with them, or we're just going for a walk, or we're on different sides of the globe because of work. Can I still find contentment there? That's Jupiter. And that's going to be true, again, through any area of life. But since we're talking about relationships here, we need to look at these things. When we look at the birth chart in general, how's Mercury? Well, Mercury is going to tell us, do you have a capacity to communicate well with anyone, really? But let's just talk about your marriage partner. If Mercury is not strong, you're not able to communicate your needs. Maybe Mercury is being agitated by the sun. Again, another Logitati Avashta. You can't express your needs until it's too late, and then you blow up. And again, these are things that, if you want to explore them, you can look at the MP3 audio download on my website, AshevilleVedicAstrology.com, specifically on the Logitati Avashtas. It'll give you all kinds of insights into yourself because of this. And soon we will be posting a course on the Atmakaraka and the Darakaraka. It's not quite ready yet, almost there, but it's an audio course and a little bit of video that helps you understand yourself through figuring out what your Atmakaraka is, understanding yourself through what your Darakaraka is, how you relate to others, and what the exchange is in relationships. Because once you can understand where that other person's coming from, by what planet rules the Darakaraka and what planet rules you, relationships can be much better. But anyway, point being, let's consider this without astrology. Well, ideally, astrology is meant to lead you to greater self-knowledge. But what is another way to experience greater self-knowledge? Through just simply paying attention. Okay. And this is one of the difficulties of being an astrologer, is that usually when someone wants a session, they want you to give them a secret key in relationship to how to improve their communication with their spouse, or the secret key in regards to how to have more intimacy. When there's no secret key, all the astrological chart's going to do is say you have difficulty connecting with your partner because of Rahu in the 8th. You have all these obsessions and unfulfilled desires that you just can't, they're not going to be satisfied by your partner. Well, you already knew that. But now what? So the thing is to get a sense of writing down, being very clear on why are you unhappy in your relationship? Why do you feel unfulfilled in your relationship? And ask yourself, has this been a pattern that has repeated in other relationships? Meaning, do you find yourself with different people but getting similar results? For example, one woman I know, she was unhappy in a very long-term relationship because she was not getting the attention that she felt she deserved from her spouse. So she got out of that relationship and she got another relationship. And in that relationship, it wasn't the exact same thing, but now the partner that she was with was very frustrated because he wanted to put attention to his work and his business. And he just wanted her to be, the woman in the relationship, the classical woman in the relationship that doesn't do anything except be there. So now she's unfulfilled because, again, the person's putting attention towards work, the partner's putting attention towards work, and she's still not getting her needs met. And then she moves on to another relationship. Now this relationship is much different. Different person, different approach, but the same result. This person is just detached. This person just doesn't necessarily think too much about relationships. If it's there, it's great. If it's not, no big deal. So the result was the same. And why was that? Because the person was not looking at their chart and seeing that maybe they needed to develop their own sense of self away from relationship. Maybe they needed to put more attention to their work and their career. Again, all these things that were being reinforced by the relationships, each relationship this person got in, but just from a different light, a different standpoint. So your chart's going to follow you no matter where you go. So how can you have better relationships? Well, number one, don't make the relationship your sole source of satisfaction. You keep trying to do that, you keep having the fairy tale syndrome, or the soulmate syndrome, more than likely you're pretty much always going to get let down. So don't make your own sense of happiness dependent on a relationship. Be yourself. Be a unique individual. Follow your path in life to do the work that you're meant to do, or follow your interests. And if you happen to meet someone who's in line with that, in tune with that, great. When it comes to relationships, long-term relationships, realize, since we're talking about the Navamsa, which deals with our commitment to our path, and that's often what marriage is, a path that we're committed to, that what is that there for? Is it there so that you can consistently be lost in relationships? Or is it there so that you know that you have a partner that you can count on? That you know that you can come home to, and the bills are going to be paid, and you're going to have a good dinner together, and you're going to be able to sleep comfortably beside each other. And then you get up in the morning and you're able to focus on your own work. And that partner can also go off and focus on his or her own work, because they know they have a strong foundation at home. And that is how marriages were, I'm going to venture to guess, traditionally meant to be. Because if you think about it, it's just this new thing of being so caught up in fantasy and romance. Fantasy and romance is great if it's there, but not everyone's chart supports that. And we don't want to have the thoughts around relationships that you do in high school. So growing up is very helpful too. In high school you get lost in someone. You think it's going to be this magical dream, but the reality is you grow up, you maybe raise a family, you do your work, and that's what the marriage is there for, to support you. So letting go of those fantasies that you have about it. Beyond that, we don't want to make it seem like relationships are meant to be dull and drab and never anything worthwhile going on, but invest in the relationship. Meaning, if you have a female spouse, buy your spouse flowers just because you love her. Give compliments. Comment on how good the person looks. Talk with them. Ask them how their day has gone. Find out what they're interested in, right? So if you think about that, who are the people who have the best friends? Are they the people that go on and talk about themselves all the time? Or are they the people that listen? Are they the people that are interested more so in the other person? So don't make the relationship about you, essentially. What's always going to typically cause that? Well, if we have Venus starved by the moon or Mercury starved by the moon, that's always the issue where people say, they're just not paying enough attention to me, or we're just not connecting enough on a deep emotional level. And why is that? It's because the person is putting more emphasis on getting their needs met in the relationship versus contributing to the relationship. Okay, so it's much different than what most clients want to hear who have that problem. They want to hear that they're vindicated and that they're not getting their needs met. When really the best way to approach it is to pay more attention to the other individual, right? Make it about them, not about you. That's a life lesson in general too. Your work, it's not about you, it's about the people that you serve. Okay, it may be, yes, that you get compensated for your work, and we just need that in this political system, this economic system that we have. But if you're able to treat your work as though it is a service to others, whether you get compensated or not, you'll do a much better job. So when it comes to astrology and when it comes to relationships, you can do a lot without having an astrological session. Because typically all the astrological session is going to do is confirm what you already know. It might put in a bit of a different perspective for you, but it's still going to indicate the work that you need to do. Okay, for example, let's say that you find that every time a relationship gets stressful, you bail, or you can't take it. You want everything to be peaceful and well organized all the time. Well, Saturn's in our life and in our chart and in the sky for a reason. Saturn is our capacity to endure hardships. And so if you see someone who has a good Saturn, particularly in the Navamsa, they'll be able to endure the hardships. So a problem arises. That's part of life. Humans are a collection of unresolved compulsions, obsessions, memories, traumas. That's what a human being typically is in our day and age. So if you're dealing with a human being, you're going to be dealing with that, which means things are going to go wrong every now and then. And if your Saturn is strong, you'll realize this. You realize that life's not perfect, suffering occurs, I'll get through it. And that seems very boring to a lot of people, because then they say, oh, well, you just get in a relationship of companionship. All right, well, that may be true. But in the long run, a relationship of companionship can be much more fulfilling than one that's based on intense need for stimulation, which are Mercury and Venus related things. You get Mercury and Venus people with Mercury and Venus in the 7th house. Why can that cause difficulties for marriage? Why do some of the astrologers say that? Because it makes you so focused on getting your desires met through the marriage that you're always moving on to the next person or the next thing, or you're never satisfied, even though they're benefic planets. So we have to see this. So for marriage to work, for relationships to work, there has to be this balance of practicality of Saturn, this balance of logic and reason with Mars, this balance of making choices that lead to higher fulfillment, Venus, more long-term fulfillment, real fulfillment, not passing pleasures. With Jupiter, the capacity to just be content and happy and see the good in the other person, knowing that everyone is a collection of compulsions, unresolved desires, memories and things, and seeing the bigger picture so that you can find happiness with who you are with. The Sun, are you able to be inspired to improve your relationship, to strive to be dedicated to your partner, to have that consistency, to be there for them? Mercury, the capacity to communicate, the capacity to be friendly with each other, to share in each other's hobbies, even if you're not really interested, just the capacity to take some time to, as one of my old friends would say, to get on someone else's surfboard and ride it for a while, because it's not all about us. With the Moon, do you have the capacity to be emotionally strong, to be adaptable in relationships, to realize not everything's going to go the way you want? All right. So these are all things that are going to could be determined from your birth chart, and specifically from the Navamsa. And again, for more information on that, one of these days I'll do some specific classes on the Vargas. I really want to do that. But in the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2, there's a whole chapter on the Vargas. Particularly, it talks about the planets within the Vargas. It talks about the houses within the Vargas and how to understand what planets there mean in each house in the Varga. Or what does each planet, what are the most important planets within the Navamsa, or the most important planets in the Dasamsa. And those are the main ones that I go over in this book. But overall, astrology is wonderful for self-knowledge. But even greater is just taking some time to do some self-analysis and realize that the astrologer is just going to confirm probably what you already know. And so if you want to improve relationships, you need to address these things. Even if it feels uncomfortable or it doesn't feel like that's the way it should be, well, that's part of the problem, right? Learning to be realistic about what does it take to have a good relationship. And that it's not the same thing that you think it should be when you're in high school, which a lot of people are stuck emotionally in high school or even before that. So they expect a relationship to follow that same kind of pattern. So maybe reading books on how to have healthy relationships, or working with a counselor to help deal with your expectations in a relationship. A book I always recommend, The Presence Process by Michael Brown, that allows you to see your projections, that allows you to see what are you bringing into the relationship? Because what you experience in a relationship is just a reflection of what's unresolved within you, what's unintegrated within you. So it always starts with you. And so you can get good information about relationships, how to improve relationships with astrology, and also without astrology. Okay, so do keep all of this in mind. And if you have any thoughts or questions, ask them. Ask them on the comments below, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video to this, speaking to those questions, because obviously you can't cover it all in one video. And future videos, this is kind of a series I think I might try to do. Better relationships with or without astrology, or better career with or without astrology, better whatever it might be. So what else would you like to know about? Better what with or without astrology? So we can talk about what parts of astrology will help you to understand this, but also what are some things that you can do that you might not even need astrology to help. Because our whole goal, as astrologers, is to help people live better lives. And it's great if you can do it through astrology. But it's also even better if you can just figure it out by paying attention to your life, which is one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of meditation, self-inquiry. My other channel, youtube.com/Kriya Yoga Online. That's helping you with self-mastery so that you can use astrology to supplement your life, but not as something to be dependent on. Something that you get consulting every now and then to help you navigate things that you're not sure about. But then you're able to take responsibility for your life and navigate those things that might be common sense, or that you can learn just with a little bit of self-analysis. Okay, so thank you very much, and I look forward to being in touch soon. And I will have that video for at least the 5th house in the Vimshottari Nakshatra Dashas course ready. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And do be aware to follow this channel or subscribe to the channel, because beginning in 2016, my goal is to begin looking at Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, one of the prime texts on Vedic astrology, and start at the very beginning and go through the techniques, the principles, the philosophy of it, so that there's a body of classes available free here on YouTube that you can refer to, so that you can learn astrology as best you can from that foundation of what does Parashara say about it. Because too often people learn astrology from books that are based on Parashara, so that's understandable. But they don't quite go into the detail that's needed to understand the fullness of astrology, because astrology is a very complex system. And to do it well, it requires a bit more than just saying my moon is in this position, or I have this particular yoga. You have to know how to qualify those things. And so Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra will help us. Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.